What's up, everyone? We're back for another episode of Post-Game Locked On Bucks. The Bucks are back on the winners list. What a relief that is. Giannis was relieved after the game. We're relieved here on this show that we get to talk about a new winning streak that has just tipped off. The Bucks do what they do. If they wanted to break a losing streak, all they had to do was tee up a meeting with the Detroit Pistons. That's 15 wins in a row against the Pistons. So we're going to break it all down. And unfortunately, as there is every single night, some more unfortunate injury or health news. We'll get to that as well as we get going. So let's get started.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show daily and find my work over at ESPN and NBA Australia. And joining me, as always, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. As I mentioned, the Bucks beat the Pistons. They win with a final of 117-89. We'll break it all down here in a second. As always, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every day, wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, over now on YouTube. If you haven't checked us out on YouTube, get over there and do that. And at least hit that subscribe button. We would absolutely appreciate that. Today's episode is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it, Frank. And I am loving the Bucks winning a game of basketball. It's funny how quickly you think that the Bucks are in a bit of a rut. Can they overcome this injury struggles that they've got again tonight? Giannis, the only one of the preseason projected starters that was out on the court. And you mentioned it on a podcast that we did last week when the Bucks beat the Pacers and the Spurs in those back-to-back games on the road. It was almost like, oh, wow, this team actually can win with all these players out of the lineup. I forgot that they could win without all these players out of the lineup. So admittedly, it felt like men against boys tonight against the Detroit Pistons. They're obviously a super young team. It was an easy night for the Bucks, but it still feels good to get back on the winners list, back at 500, back in the hunt for the play-in tournament.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing that I kept coming back to as, thinking about these last few losses is just, well, when you don't make shots and, you don't make open threes and you don't have, the same size and creation that you normally have without Khris, without Drew, without, Brook Lopez being, obviously Brook can shoot threes too, but I mean, he's obviously a part of what the Bucks like to do inside on both ends. So, your margin of error is just a lot lower. And when you shoot, was it 3 straight games under 30%? I mean, you're just not giving yourself a whole heck of a lot of chance, especially because defensively, I mean, I thought they've held up actually like reasonably well defensively of late. After tonight's games, they're 13th in offense and defense, which, in the grand scheme of how they've been playing feels okay. But yeah, I mean, it's remarkable what making open threes and making some not open threes as well, will do for you versus the Pistons who, stink. Played also, I would say, a bad game even by their standards. I mean, they shot 17% from three. I think even the Bucks didn't get down to 17% here in terms of 3-point shooting. So this was a just what the doctor ordered type of game, especially coming on the heels of finding out that Khris Middleton, 24 hours after being told that he did not have a COVID-related illness. Turns out, unfortunately, he does have a COVID-related illness. So, the hits just kind of keep on coming in terms of the injury news. But thankfully tonight, it was, right now this Bucks offense in particular, I mean, it's Giannis in a cloud of dust. And, I made the joke to our friend Rami Makaloff from the Fan earlier today. It's going to be Giannis in a cloud of dust, and you're going to need the cloud of dust to hit some open threes. And obviously, they hadn't been doing that previously. Tonight, they did. And, Giannis was kind of in his element with 3 triples, 28 points in 26 minutes, blocked 4 shots, 9 assists. He just looked kind of in MVP control mode and knocked down some jumpers, including both the threes as well as some mid-range stuff. So, I thought he took what the Pistons gave him and obviously his teammates kind of followed his lead and hit a bunch of shots for a change.
Yeah, they certainly did. And we always start with Giannis, but when he has a night like tonight, 28 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, it didn't feel entirely fair. And I'll say this, I've seen some takes being thrown out there about Cade Cunningham. Can we stop? He was playing in his second game. He's had an ankle injury, and 30 seconds or 1 minute, whatever it was, into this game, he had the freight train of Giannis steaming at him to the basket for an and one. So just give this kid a chance. Can we please do that? That's all I would ask for anyone talking shit about Cade Cunningham. But Giannis in this one, this felt like the perfect game for him to feel good about himself again. He actually revealed in the post-game media conference that that knee that was hurting him against Utah, he actually asked the medical staff, the medical staff mentioned to him that perhaps you shouldn't go back on the court. And he's like, I'm going back on. And again, people might read different things into that, but I think what we understand is that the knee injury isn't necessarily going to get worse, but that certainly felt like the medical staff from the outside felt like them saying, look, no one's playing this game. We're losing by almost double digits. We're probably not going to win. We know you can't hold yourself back. Maybe just rest this second half. Giannis said after the game, it's not the time for that. It's not the time for that. And I did see some sentiment from Bucks fans saying, okay, you're playing the Pistons. He was listed on the injury report as probable with the knee, and maybe he just shouldn't play. But I kind of understand why they would want him to play. Obviously, he has to be healthy enough to produce. He did that. He'll play through injuries. I think he's proven that he can do that. But I spoke on the pod yesterday about the fact that it's going to get tough for the Bucks, particularly if these guys don't come back. Khris Middleton is going to have an extended period on the sideline here, you would believe. I mentioned the White House visit. Looks like he probably won't be there, depending on what happens there, which is a shame for him if he was interested in doing that. But this was important that the Bucks just made sure they got this game, because you just don't want anything going wrong. And if you take Giannis out of this game, then it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. Maybe they lose. So I was glad that he played, just to make sure that they at least pick up this win here, because it's going to be, they're going to be working uphill for the next couple of weeks, you'd have to assume.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think if you're going to strategically rest them against the really good teams.
Yeah.
Honestly, when he's the only starter even available, like the Jazz game, I think if you're going to rest him for 1 or 2 games, rest him against the Jazz, just because the Spurs game should have been an easier game to win. But obviously it goes to both games. And I was actually, I don't know if you recall as well, but it looked like he felt his knee twinge when he was at the free throw line. He was going through his free throw routine and stopped himself and seemed to grab at his left knee. And it's just like, oh God, he's randomly feeling pain when he's about to take a free throw. It reminded me a little bit of that pregame. You guys might remember in Portland, the night he scores 47 points, and in the pregame, he seemed to feel his knee tweak when he just almost pivoted. It wasn't even really doing anything. It wasn't going up for a dunk or something like that. And of course, he ends up playing that night, having this amazing game. And then I think he out for 10 or 14 days after that game.
Just drops 48 and then gives himself a week off. Last half.
It's just, you just don't really know how it's going to be. And so I was, honestly, I tweeted about it, I was already sort of in my head thinking all right, he's listed as probable these last couple of days with the knee injury. At what point does it go, oh, Giannis is out tonight, and then is he going to miss a week to kind of just rest up his knee or something like that? So, that's the great irony of this start of the season with all the injuries, is that we started the preseason, we started the training camp with Giannis being the big question mark in terms of injury, because he wasn't practicing, and it was that knee that he almost destroyed against Atlanta and miraculously played through seems to be still bothering him, which obviously is concerning. But then he ends up coming back obviously midway through the preseason, and now he's the last man standing, ironically, out of all the starters. Everybody else with all their various ailments. Obviously, Dante we knew was going to be out, but obviously Khris with the COVID issue now, just who knows, right? We saw what happened. We saw what happened the last time the Bucks lost one of their big 3 to COVID last year with Jrue Holiday, and that was when I think they won the game in Denver, where Khris and Giannis played great, and then they had a 5-game losing streak, and it felt like, oh man, what's these guys are not deep. How are they going to manage this? So yeah, normally it's just ho hum, beat Detroit. Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. But I agree. It was oh, good. Take care of business. You gotta win some of these games that are there for the taking, because again, like a losing streak is, a longer losing streak is certainly on the table when you just don't have the guys you're used to having at your disposal. And, again, we talk about like next man up, but it's like when it's next 5 men up, like that's very different, right? And I mean, you've talked about it, like we're not talking about subbing in one guy who's not normally in the rotation. Like we've got half the rotation are guys that may not normally be playing when the Bucks are at full strength. And, you hope that there's some upsides to that later in the season, and that you've kind of given these guys reps and gotten some familiarity, and you've tried some different things. And we saw, you guys talked about it, the blitzing that Thanasis was doing in pick and rolls on Sunday. We saw a little bit of that tonight. We saw a ton of switching tonight, and the Pistons just could not, or had just no clue of how to take advantage of getting one of their big guys switched on to like Justin Robinson or George Hill or one of the small guys. And, credit the Bucks, like they fought, and I thought they were, they executed their game plan well, and the Pistons are just not very good, and they really couldn't take advantage. But yeah, I mean, just important to kind of rack up these gimme wins, and we'll see how long it lasts. But the Bucks' dominance of the Central Division, we thought maybe it would get snapped in Indiana, and for all their struggles and injury issues, they continue to rack up wins here against the Central Division.
Yeah, the Bulls are looming large. But look, I think you're right. I actually had this discussion with Justin after we finished recording yesterday, and it's probably a topic for another day. But I just wondered to myself whether this Brook Lopez situation, we've seen him have back soreness a number of times over the last couple of years, whether Milwaukee strategically are just like, and I'm not saying that he didn't have an injury, like clearly he saw, but I just wonder if they're like, okay, let's try and take advantage of this right now, get you right, and make sure that we can press ahead in the season. And if I had to put my prediction hat on here and guess what might happen, I actually thought to myself, similar to you, that Giannis, there's going to be a period where he's going to miss a stretch of games. And I thought if the Bucks could get Drew Holiday back in the lineup and then Khris Middleton, who was sort of playing, then that might be the time where they're like, okay, let's see if we can get Giannis some rest here. They might have to wait till Brook Lopez comes back. But now that Khris Middleton is out for not an injury, but a health thing, again, it's like, okay, well, maybe we just need to push through this. But I have no doubt that he's going to have a rest at some stage there. There was a more interesting thing, particularly Giannis defensively. You sent a DM to our group, which I think is a fascinating topic when it comes to Giannis defending at the 5. He spoke about it after the game. So we can get into that in a little bit. I just want to mention McDonald's, which has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect, a place where classmates meet up for a study group knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi, something that I don't have here in Australia, and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. I also don't have endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries, to be fair. So win or lose, it's a place.
They can't send you those in the mail, unfortunately. Like we need to get some dry ice, ship cans, some McFlurries in this apartment here.
Well, I actually had a disappointing discovery last night. I don't know what happened, but I guess one of my drawers in the freezer was like just slightly open still, and so I didn't really realize that my freezer was open all day. So just terribly wasteful. So even if they sent me some fries, I probably wouldn't even bother. I'll probably just mess it up anyway. But anyway, back to McDonald's. It's a place you always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. So head to your local McDonald's to refuel and reconnect. Did someone say Locked On Bucks watch party? I heard someone mention the other day, it might have been Justin. So someone said that they had a friend who actually used to do a podcast live at McDonald's because of the reliable Wi-Fi, which, interesting. I might try it one day if things are really going terribly here for me. But anyway, that's McDonald's. I'm loving it. Like I said, loving McDonald's, loving the Bucks winning. Go to McDonald's.
Yeah, we normally podcast after my daughter's been put to bed, but we may need to bring her in. Well, she can't read because she's 3, but maybe a testimonial, because she had.
Well, you went on a road trip, right?
Yeah, we road trip to Houston, and so we did not get McDonald's on the way out. Although my wife had a stop at Starbucks, and there was McDonald's across the street. My daughter and I were sitting in the car, and I don't know if my daughter actually saw Golden Arches, but she was just like, maybe we could eat lunch at McDonald's. And then my wife came back from getting her coffee, and she was like, no, we're going to just drive to Houston. We're like, oh. And in my head, I'm kind of thinking like, wow, I'm not a coffee person. Like Tilly and I sitting in the car, minding our own business, this, pets, this is craziness. And then we're not getting anything for it. Like we just got to sit there and take it while she's getting her coffee. Like,
family road trip. That's selfish behavior. As someone that's been labeled a selfish reporter, I can absolutely relate. You mentioned in the DM, Frank, about Giannis and perhaps the comfort level, or just adjusting to playing the 5, because I think when we've seen Giannis play the 5 in previous years, we've generally associated with switchable lineups, that Giannis might be switching a lot. And you did point to the fact that they did a little bit of that tonight, but we've also seen plays where he's the guy that is defending the rim and the opposition's running pick and roll, and he's back and he's like, okay, where do I position myself here? Where do I go for the shot block? They didn't all come in those types of scenarios tonight, but he had 4 block shots. I don't know where this ranks in terms of just ridiculous shot blocks, but the one on Saddiq Bey, where Saddiq Bey was dribbling down the right side of the floor, cut to the left, tried to use the rim for a reverse layup. Giannis jumped, and it was a pretty nice move from Saddiq Bey to go to the reverse. And it's like, okay, he's probably got him beat here. Instead, Giannis just tucks his hand under the rim around and just goes, I'm just gonna backhand swat this off the glass, and away they went. It was just absurd. I didn't even catch how he did it live, but I remember thinking, how did he get to that? And the slow-mo replay was awesome. But what have you noticed from him defending the 5? After the game, when he was talking about it, his description was, it's just hard. He said it is hard position to play. He said, I always respected Brook Lopez as it is, but man, just even this short stretch without Brook, which they haven't had to do a lot of, he's gained an even greater appreciation for what Brook Lopez brings to the team.
Yeah, I mean, the upside of, one of many upsides for Giannis and his athleticism is, he can play pretty much any type of pick and roll coverage, right? I mean, you can have him play super aggressive. You can have him come up to the screen. You could have him drop. I mean, if you practice it enough, I think he could, be good at that, even playing more conservative. I don't think he's ever going to be, Brook Lopez conservative, right? And, I like the term center field, which is a little bit different than a typical, like what Brook Lopez would do. I mean, Brook does it too, but it's where you're up a little higher, and, you really are basically playing 2 guys at once. Like you're trying to sort of take away the ball handler coming downhill, but then you're also kind of hanging back just enough that you can do what Giannis did to DeAndre Ayton on that block shot in the finals, right? Like that to me was kind of the definition of the most incredible center field type play, where you're basically playing both guys, right? And it's not to say Brook Lopez can do this too, and guys position themselves differently, but we're used to seeing Giannis mostly playing as a 4, right? I mean, his if you look at his positional usage this year, it's I think it's probably close to actually it's got to be higher now. But the last time I checked, it was close to 90% center. The last couple of years, Cleaning the Glass would have him at 12, 14% center. So basically it's completely inverted, his positional usage. And so we're used to him, oftentimes defending a stretch 4 or somebody where he's, oftentimes nominally defending a guy who's standing in the corner. And so if he's blocking shots, it's because he's helping over from, the weak side and coming in. It's not that he's standing there in the middle of the court waiting for guys to drive at him and block their shots. And it's not like he's just parked under the basket, a la Brook Lopez when he plays, Andre Drummond or something like that. But I thought we saw tonight examples where, whether it was because of a half court possession or there was some scramble or something like that. I mean, look, when you're the biggest guy on the floor, you're going to probably be closer to the basket. That's just natural that your positioning is going to be closer to the rim than he might otherwise be. And, he was guarding Jeremy Grant to begin with, so it's not like he was playing, I wouldn't even say he was technically playing center to start the game. But as the game went on, we saw him around the basket a lot, and you need him to rebound and do all those things. And I want to say outside of that block that you're calling out, I think the other 3 blocks all kind of just came by virtue of him sort of just kind of manning the paint and sort of defending the rim. And, maybe none better than Killian Hayes driving, down the middle of the lane, and Giannis was just waiting for him at the rim, and he went up, and Giannis just went higher and sent his shot into, whatever row it was, out of bounds. And so, it's just interesting. I mean, it's just different. And I just feel like in years past when Giannis had to play center or when he was the biggest guy on the floor, he just never seemed that comfortable, kind of knowing how to just sort of protect the rim in a traditional center style of playing. And again, that can mean different things. But it makes sense because he didn't grow up as a big man, as a center type guy. And so it's just kind of different now, the way he's having to play. And yeah, you see it there. And I think probably the reason why he's only at like 76% is probably because and I think justifiably, like they should probably be counting like the Thanasis minutes as Giannis playing power forward, just because Thanasis is typically guarding the center right now, right? But yeah, I mean, you just kind of see it like he's just having to play differently. And, I think if you're going to take something positive from, this stretch of Giannis having to play center, I think it is just the fact that, I mean, there are things that there are lineups and rotations that are obviously happening now, which you would never expect them to have to do in the playoffs. But Giannis having to play as the biggest guy on the floor, as a center, having to play, different styles of defense and protecting the rim. I mean, that I think you could say is, I mean, these are probably some valuable reps in doing that because he's got to be getting pretty close. I think Justin mentioned this too, but I mean, he's got to be getting very close to his total number of possessions that he had at center all of last season already, just because as we showed, he just didn't have that many possessions last year. So yeah, I don't know that, Giannis is as you said, like, I don't think Giannis is suddenly Brook Lopez or something like that. Brook is longer. He's also stronger and just is, I think, more used to playing as a traditional sort of rim protector. But again, I mean, this is what makes Giannis so special is that, he can be that chameleon defensively who can just do different things and you can put him in different places, play different styles of defense, and he can kind of fit in and do whatever you need.
So just for those that are listening on the podcast platform, so I just pulled up those numbers from Cleaning the Glass. So as sort of Frank referenced, so last year he was, and this is again is what they're counting as minutes at the 5. So it is probably high. I mean, they've certainly played a higher percentage of small ball lineups because that's pretty much all they've got the ability to do right now. But Cleaning the Glass has got it from 12% last year minutes at the center. This year so far it's up at 76%. So a wild swing, and it wouldn't be anywhere near that if Brook Lopez was playing. But that's the situation they find themselves in. You tweeted something interesting about Jordan Nwora, and I just thought this was pre-game, and I just thought it was an interesting conversation. I feel like we haven't spoken about Jordan for a while, so I want to get to that. But do you still have this candy, the pumpkin tin?
Yeah, this is my daughter went around on Sunday, and I was literally watching the Jazz game on my phone while we were walking around. I mean, I was not the only. To be clear, there were a bunch of us. There was me, my wife, my sister-in-law, my wife's aunt, and my mother, all with us. And it was my daughter, who's 3, dressed up as Minnie Mouse, and her cousin, who's 4, dressed up as Batman. And they went around house to house in Houston collecting candy. They got a pretty damn good haul. I mean, like, full-size Snickers bar, that's a good haul. Full-size bag of peanut M&Ms, that's a pretty good haul. So yeah, it was a pretty good haul. But I feel like I don't know if this is where you were going to go with it, Kane, but I mean, I feel like, if you're talking trick or treat, game 1, Nets, Jordan Nwora, that was a treat. Jordan Nwora since the Nets game, a whole lot of trick, not a whole lot of production. And tonight, I think he was much closer to that full-size Snickers bar that I'm holding up for those listening on the podcast. As he, I thought, had a nice bounce-back game. Because, yeah, I mean, the stats I looked up, since that Nets game, 31% from the floor.
Frank, hang on a second. Come back to the stats, because I want to tell you that's not where I was going with this. What I was going with that is, in Australia, we don't really celebrate Halloween. But I always hear people talk about it, and they're always like, well, the house in the neighborhood that has the good treats. Everyone knows as you grow up, you figure out which house to have it. And it got me thinking that no doubt across America, people celebrating Halloween, the kids would have had it. So they would have had it sourced. They would have had it figured out. They would have known which houses have the Built Bars, because anytime you trick or treating, if you can go to a house that has the best tasting protein bar that's ever been made, think about that. The best tasting protein bar that's ever been made. Now that is one kind of treat. So with Built Bar, we know. Look, I tell you what. I was talking about Halloween. I got my holidays mixed up, but I also love Thanksgiving. All of the good food and treats, and plenty of them. But maybe you want a yummy dessert, but isn't so full of calories and sugar. It's the perfect time for Built Bars. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. Feast on something delicious and feel good about it. One slice of pie has upwards of 300 calories, and that's on the low end. Most Built Bars are only 130 calories and only 4 grams of sugar with plenty of protein. So picture it now, you're around the table. I love Thanksgiving. We don't celebrate it in Australia anyway, but when I've been in America, I've absolutely loved it. You're sitting around the table. You've had your turkey. And then out comes the Built Bars. It's not the pie, but out come these delicious Built Bars. You've never had a better Thanksgiving in your life. So to cash in on this and make sure your family's got this down pat, go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Oh, man, I went too early. I got my holidays mixed up, but it doesn't really matter. It all ties together.
It took me a while before I realized you were like reading ad copy there. I was like, man, he's really just jumping into this Thanksgiving theme here, and then I was like, oh no, wait, this doesn't feel quite organic.
Who's to say? Who's to say that I was reading? Who's to say? Who's to say I was reading ad copy? But by the way, baseball's done now as we're tweeting this. Again, the Brewers, whoever the Brewers lose to in the playoffs, in the postseason, they go on to win the World Series. But so next year, keep that in mind when you go to betonline.ag. But for now, it's the best spot for basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. It's BetOnline where the game starts. Frank, go ahead with your total.
Wait, let me defend myself here for a moment too.
Okay.
You made it sound like, because I listened to the podcast when I'm not on it, you made it sound like I blew you off on Sunday because I was watching baseball.
I did.
To be clear, I had a full night of trick-or-treating with little kids. I got some grief. I got called out for watching basketball while I was walking around a neighborhood watching, with these kids, right? So I took some heat for that. And then I was ready to podcast just late, but I'm watching the baseball game with my in-laws. They're from Houston, so they're Astros fans. Hey, I was willing to go, but you had to go earlier, and there's various reasons for that. But man, I'm the male normally when it comes to post-game pods, right? I mean, I was ready to go. Even after 2 straight losses, I was ready to go. I was ready to workshop that. So I'm not. People shouldn't mistake it. I'm not showing up just because they happen to win a game in Detroit. I just wanted to make that clear.
I took a calculated risk that with spending some family time and also the holiday on that you wouldn't listen to the podcast. Sometimes you do that as a host. This one didn't pay off, and I should always know that Frank is always listening. Now, I will say this: we share this streaming service. Our friend from Locked On Braves is about to jump on, so we'll wrap this up quickly. But that Jordan Nwora, let's get to it because it's been an interesting situation for him. That all season we've been talking about what else can he do? Defense. Passing the ball, making the extra pass, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, none of the guys that we want him to fit in with in lineups to become a rotation player out on the floor. Hey, maybe we need you to score some more. Tonight he did. He scored 16 points, which was probably had to feel good for him because he's had a off week or two, depending on how harsh you want to be.
Yeah, it's been like since game one, basically, it's been tough, and it's kind of funny. I think. It's funny how that game has, for very good reasons, has shaped a lot of the, I think, national perception of the Bucks. Right? They had the very emphatic opening night win while they were at full health against the Nets, and that's the last time we've really seen kind of the real Bucks play. So I think the good news is that to me is still like the most meaningful game in a lot of respects because it's the only time we've really seen them at full health. But I think Jordan Nwora, from an individual perspective, the shine of that game, I think, has sort of maybe carried sort of perception of him a little bit. And the fact that, as we said, I think his defensive effort, again, he's still making mistakes defensively here and there for sure. But I think his effort level has been good defensively. And his decision-making, passing has been certainly a lot better. I mean, it seems like he's really working to do what he needs to happen to be a rotation player in the NBA. But, as you're saying, I mean, if you're not making shots and 31% from overall and 26% on threes, that's not working for a guy whose bread and butter is putting the ball in the hole. So to see him tonight, he got that dunk early. I think that was actually his first dunk of this. I think it was his first dunk of the regular season. Yeah, nice drive and dunk from the half court. Looked, pretty bouncy. So for him to kind of get that early dunk, and then I don't know if it was. I think it may have been his first three. That three he hit in the second half, and obviously the game's out of reach at this point, so it's not like they desperately needed his scoring to win this game. But he got a very friendly role on a rim bounce off backboard, a couple more bounces settled in for a three, and it was kind of like, okay, like that's just the kind of shot maybe you need to see go down for yourself. Get a little bit of luck when the ball's just not going in. So for him to put up 16 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a plus 12 in 24 minutes was just nice to see. And again, like we talked about on opening night, even when he plays well, tonight 13 shots for 16 points, 7 out of 13. That's good. It does mean to get to the free throw line, and he takes obviously a lot of difficult shots. So that's kind of one of those things that you worry about a little bit, right? Is efficiency ever going to be as high as you kind of ideally would want it to be, just given the shot profile he takes and the fact that he doesn't get to the line a lot? We'll obviously monitor it, but in a game like tonight, and again, competition level not obviously super high, but I think it's important for him, especially with Khris Middleton being out. I mean, you just need somebody to make shots, and tonight, Jordan was very good. Pat Connaughton bounced back in a big way. 16 points on 8 shots, 4 out of 5 from 3. He was ripping the nets in that first half when, they were able to get that separation. And, Bobby Portis is taking a lot of shots, as he did on Sunday. 12 points on 13 shots. Not great. 8 rebounds, a block, plus 11 in 22 minutes. Did hit 1 out of 2 from 3. So, again, I think a lot of it's just a matter of kind of him easing the rotation. So, again, it's just like, you just need some people to make some shots, right? And look at some of the role players. Thanasis, 9 points, 4 out of 4. Hey, thanks, Thanasis. Good. Like, a couple steals, 8 rebounds. Like, good, right? Had some nice connection with Giannis. And your favorite guy, Justin Robinson, 11 points on 7 shots as well. Seems to have gotten the memo that when Giannis passes you the ball, just shoot it immediately. He ended up hitting some threes tonight as well. So. Anytime you get those role players hitting shots, I mean, that's how you hit 17 out of 37 from 3, which, the Bucks desperately needed after some hard luck shooting the last few games.
Pretty good night for Justin Robinson. He also got a pretty sharp reminder that stay out of the way when Giannis is trying to make a pass right before halftime there. I think he got it right in the face. He was trying to look, I think he was doing it
from really close range.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was Harden-esque almost. He was closer than Harden, actually. He was trying to just do that little like shovel flick pass out to Jordan Nwora at the wing for the buzzer-beating 3. Justin Robinson got it. Giannis put his arm around him and said, when I'm trying to get out of the way, but, whatever he said to him, I don't know what Giannis would have said to him. Basically, the gist of the message would have been get out of the way. You forgot one guy, though. Semi Ojeleye is on the board. 4 points. Still no 3, though. No 3. But
he only took 1 at least. He only took 1 at least.
He only took 1. He was feeling a little bit shy tonight. Funnily enough, tonight was probably the night that he could have let it rip, but he didn't. We're still waiting that first 3 from Semi Ojeleye. But, it's good to see him out there getting some minutes. Tough night for him, I would say. He was one of the rare guys that you would say it was a tough night for Semi Ojeleye. But we'll see. He's still trying to find his feet. As always, I remind you guys, before we wrap this up, make sure you check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast with Josh Lloyd, who does a fantastic job over there. And like I mentioned on yesterday's pod, if you've got Bucks players in your fantasy team, you don't know what to do with them, Josh will tell you. I mean, here on Locked On Bucks, we're keeping them. We're keeping them all. But Josh might tell you to get rid of some of them. He might have a little bit of concern because if you drafted some of those guys high in your draft, that's tough times for you. But one last thing before we wrap this up, Frank. Not only has the Bucks on-court personnel suffered lots of change in personnel, so has the broadcast team. But I wanted to shout out Melanie Ricks tonight for making her debut on the sidelines. Anyone that's been to Bucks games will definitely know Melanie and definitely know her voice. It was a little bit interesting to see her on the TV, not just absolutely hyping up. And she had Thanasis at the halftime interview. She could have gone back to her normal role and just got Thanasis hyped up for halftime, but very professional. Fantastic job. Lisa's obviously there. Dave Kane's there. Stephen Bardo's there as well. So, we're just, there's absences left, right, and center, Frank. I don't know what's going on.
That's a good point. I hadn't really even thought about that. But yeah, even the broadcast team is having to manage through next woman / man up type situation. So yeah, I mean, again, it's normally I like to get to the next game, win or lose. But as I said, last time we spoke, Tuesday game out of the way. I'm very happy to have a couple days off here before they welcome the Knicks into town on Friday, which
Hopefully Drew's back.
Yeah, you really hope Drew Holiday's back, and at least if you got Drew back, then I think you feel like you have more of a puncher's chance against or legitimate chance against better teams. You don't just need a bunch of shooting luck, which tonight they got. Let's be honest, they got a lot of shooting luck. They're obviously a better team than the Pistons, probably regardless. As long as Giannis is carted out there and on the floor, they should beat the Pistons. But yeah, obviously I think the Knicks are going to be certainly a better test on Friday, and I don't obviously think we have any illusion that Khris Middleton's going to be there, but and it doesn't seem like Brooks close either. But hopefully get Drew Holiday back. Obviously Bobby Portis revenge game ? We always used to joke. I think it dates back to Jody Meeks, 2009 second round draft pick Jody Meeks. I think Steve Von Horn had a joke on the original iteration of the Brew podcast about how he had some dubs he wanted to release when Jody Meeks hit his first 3-pointer, and all the dubs died because it took months for it to happen. Still waiting to release the dubs for Semi Ojeley's first 3-point basket, but it's only been 3 games, so hopefully he will get off the schneid here pretty soon. Hopefully on Friday we will see Semi Ojeley hit his first 3-point basket, because they're gonna need people other than Giannis to make some shots.
So back to 500, a couple of days off before they play the Knicks. The Knicks have been a pretty entertaining team, so this should be a fun game. It's on national TV. So again, hopefully there are some bodies back for that game on Friday night. Coming up on the next couple of days in the show, we've got Seth Partnow coming on one of these days, trying to lock down a time with him. Obviously, he's a much smarter basketball person than me, and he's also got his book coming out, Mid-Range Theory, here in the next couple of weeks or next couple of days. I think it's November 16th. So anyway, he'll be able to tell you that. So we'll have Seth on here, and then we'll preview Bucks and Knicks as well. So thanks to everyone for listening and subscribing and all those good things, and we will be back tomorrow.